Hi everybody. Just going live here. So welcome to the session. I'm sorry I got a little bit delayed today with my session, but I guess we'll make up for that as you go ahead. So today's session is how to use my book on data interpretation, and DI ki book, as you know, is again part of the DI reasoning section, and critical in the sense that you will typically have a split of around 4 sets on DI and 4 sets on reasoning in the CAT. So let me just start off discussing this with you then. I hope you can see my screen now. So this session is about how to use my book on data interpretation. Uh, it's about the LR book. Not the LR, sorry, the DI book. So before I start off, the mandatory message from my publishers, McGraw-Hill. This is the these are the current versions of the books which are currently available on the on various portals. Quants is currently on the 8th edition. 2021, we're going to have the 9th edition of Quants. Data interpretation is in the 6th edition. That's the book we are talking about today. Verbal ability and reading comprehension is in the 9th edition, which has just got released. Logical reasoning, we talked about that yesterday in detail. It's in the 5th edition. And this new book, I've got a larger image of this. So this is about to, I mean, this is, I just checked, it's still not available on Flipkart and Amazon. It should come out in the next few days, maybe a week at max. Give it a week at max before it comes. So by maybe 15th, 20th August, it should be out in the market. So this is the latest book which has come out from our side, which is the CAT previous year papers book, chapter wise previous year solved papers book. This is the cover of that book. Yeah, Vijay, if you are appearing for next year, we will be bringing out normally we do two book revisions every year. So next year the schedule would have been for DI and the schedule would have been for data interpretation and logical reasoning, but quantitative aptitude and verbal was supposed to be done this year. So since quantitative aptitude has not done this year, this will also go to the next year. So there will be an edition, but by the time these editions come, it will be June, July, at least for DILR and for DI and LR. So it'll be too late by that time. For I mean, you'll end up wasting. If you look at your timeline available to you, अभी अगस्त है और अगर तुम अगले जून तक बुक्स के लिए वेट करते हो तो you're missing out the majority of your timeline. So you can just I think you can use the current versions. ऐसे भी the changes I mean 20-30% changes होते हैं हर edition में, but structural changes DILR में majorly last edition में हुआ था. So DILR at least will go into the fresh editions that are going that are coming up. Those editions will essentially have good some questions and increase of the number of relevant questions, etc. But even as I showed you in LR yesterday, so it's quite relevant for CAT 20 or 21 also. So you can prepare with the current editions for the time being. इस बुक को ले लेना, ये बुक थोड़ा इसको वेट कर लेना थोड़ा सा लेने के पहले. इस बुक अगर तुम 21 के लिए प्रिपेयर कर रहे हो तो इसका भी नया एडिशन आएगा, बिकॉज CAT 20 का पेपर will also be included in this. So you can have this thing, but if you're wanting to start right now, you can do it. Or 20 का पेपर जब आएगा तो anyway you'll have the questions of the paper available in the public domain also, so you can just add that to it. Wanted to inform you guys also about one more book that I have, which is not so well known, because the main quants book kind of overshadows this. This book I had written for banking aspirants and SSC aspirants, because uh, and also all other lower aptitude exams. So you look at any other aptitude exam. Low by lower, I mean not lower in terms of the career they lead to, lower in terms of the quality of questions. So इसमें LOD 3s etc. of course are not there. तो banking है, SSC है, उसके बाद CSAT है. All those exams के लिए this book is there. I'll do that, Celestine. So all those exams, this book is there, and this is, I mean, if somebody wants two sources, all the question banks in this is different from my main quant book. So if you want two sources to prepare, maybe what you can do is especially if you're doing the long term, so you can do this book to start with, and then do the QA for CAT. Even if you're going for CAT, so move to QA for CAT after you finish this book. So that would kind of give you a dual source from my side. But of course, for SSC, banking, CSAT, and government exams, and exams like LIC, etc., RBI, all those exams के लिए this book is relevant. So maybe you guys can use it. इसका भी I'll do a special session on this. The speed maths is at the lower level, I've done quite a bit in this. Right. So the main book that we are discussing today is this one, the data interpretation for CAT, and let's look at what you need to do, how to do it, etc. when you are looking at the DI for CAT. So just like the other books are split into parts, the DI book is also split into 3 sections. This is a major change I made to the DI 6th edition, which came out in 2019, July, August. So and nothing that happened in the CAT paper in 2019 made me feel that I need to change anything out of this. So there are 3 sections in this book. Section 1, Section 2, Section 3. Section 1 is traditional data interpretation. Section 2 is logical data interpretation. And Section 3 is archives from the past years. So you have these 3 subparts of the DI book, of the data interpretation book. And why I split it into this part is because you could see the last few years, although if you go into the CAT portion or the portion definition for any exam, they will not talk about this division. They'll not talk about traditional DI and they'll not talk about logical DI. They'll just talk about DI separately as a whole. So as a pedagogy, why have I taken this approach? The reason for that, the reason for that is that if you look at the kind of, I mean, I'm looking at it from the other end, that when a DI question comes in front of you, what are the steps you're supposed to take? And what are the steps you are supposed to execute to get to the answer? In that context, what I could very clearly see as a trainer is that the steps required to solve questions in data interpretation and the skills required to solve in questions in what I now call as traditional data interpretation was very different from the skills required to solve a logical DI question. They were very, very different from each other. Hi, Upendra, welcome. No, Michelle, trigonometry is not very important, just the basics you should know. That's it. So, skills required to do traditional data interpretation, the skills required to do logical data interpretation, the, the, the skills that would get you through the steps were very, very different from each other. And while my previous edition had a component of, I had created a component of logical DI using something called challenges in DI. There was a section in my 5th edition of the DI book, as you can see here. We are now in the 6th edition. I'm talking about the 5th edition, the 4th edition on before that. I had created a section called challenges in DI, which had around 100 sets. Starting में उसमें 80 सेट्स थे, बाद में एक्सपैंड करके 100-120 सेट्स तक मैं ले गया था इसको. तो ये ट्रेडिशनल डीआई वाला जो चैलेंज इन डीआई वाला जो पार्ट था, this part was the area in my previous books where you could get practice or you could get access to the kind of questions CAT was starting to throw these years. Now, please remember, CAT does not tell you that you are traditional DI, that this is a traditional DI question or that is a logical DI, and CAT does not also say that now I'm going to ask you only logical DI question. CAT will only tell you that we are going to ask you DI. So CAT में ये दोनों important हो जाता है. And if you look at CAT 18 and 19, CAT 17 में all the DI was logical, but CAT 18 and 19 में, specifically CAT 19 में, there were 2 sets of DI that would qualify as traditional DI. So what is the difference between, what is the mental difference between traditional DI and logical DI? How do I define it? So my answer to that is, when you look at a traditional DI question, there is data given to you, and most of your skills required to solve it is extract data, put it in the right formula or equation, and then from there you execute the calculations and get to the answer. But in a logical DI question, there is a lot of, in a logical DI question, this is the flow of a traditional DI question. In a logical DI question, there's a lot of once you see the data, you see that there's a lot of twisting and turning of the data that you have to do. So there's a lot of internal thinking within the data. So there's a lot of stories which are inbuilt into the data, and you have to be able to do a series of steps to be able to extract or get to the point where you can start extracting answers to the questions asked. Now, please understand, when they say data interpretation, what does it mean? When they say data interpretation, what does it mean? Data interpretation basically means that you have some data, some information. See, one thing you should be very clear of right at the start, that if you're given some data, and data might be given to you in the form of pie charts, bar charts, or whatever, when you interpret the data, you draw out information. So in a traditional DI question, the data is more or less static. It's given to you as it is. And as I said, all you have to do is extract the data and put it in the right formula and calculate it. Right? But if you look at logical DI, what happens is that the data has to be kind of it has to be manipulated, and the data has to be twisted and turned, and it has to be taken through steps and a series of thoughts to get to the point where you can extract the information. Data interpretation is always about answering questions based on the data. So it's always about information. It's always about information seeking. Every question seeks information from the given data from you, right? So this twisting turning requires a very different kind of thought process than the traditional DI requires. So what you are supposed to do, I mean, when you prepare for CAT, as I said, CAT 19 का paper देख लो, 2 sets traditional DI, 2 sets logical DI. और ट्रेडिशनल डीआई क्रिटिकल इसलिए हो जाता है. A lot of people ask me, I was 100 percentile in CAT 18 in DI, and I had solved 6.5 sets in 60 minutes to get the 100 percentile in DI. So when I did that, a lot of people ask me this question, and they wonder the kind of papers, the kind of questions that are there these days. The big wonder is how does somebody do 7 sets? How does someone solve 7 sets in the exam? Big question. 7 सेट कैसे सॉल्व होता है? लोग 4 या 3 या 4 में स्ट्रगल करते हैं. People struggle in 3 or 4 in solving 3-4 sets. How do people like me end up getting through 6.5-7 sets in a 1-hour paper? Given the kind of logical DI questions which are not doable in less than 12 minutes. 10, 12, 14 minutes some of these questions take. And definitely for us also it takes that time. But what you need to understand is that imagine somebody solving a paper and the first set takes, let's say, 11 minutes. The second set takes 12 minutes. But what if in between we can get through one set in 5 minutes? And we can do that twice or thrice during the paper. So if you see this is around 55 minutes for 6 sets, even though these sets are 12 minutes each or 10, 11, 12 minutes each. So this opportunity the CAT is providing in between. Even in CAT 17, there was a set in data interpretation. Even this CAT 17 papers in the morning, in the difficult slot, there was one set which had a 5-minute resolution. Other sets required 10, 12 minutes each, but there was one set which had a 5-minute resolution. So the idea is that when you get that possibility, you have to be able to speed up. So your preparation has to make sure, and mostly these 5-6 minute sets, they either come from reasoning or they come from traditional DI. Reasoning में बीच में कभी-कभी simple set आ जाता है. Sometimes there will be a simple set in reasoning. Sometimes there will be a set which will come out of traditional DI. So if you look at CAT 19 paper, देख लेना. Look at the CAT 19 paper. CAT 19 paper में, I don't remember the slot, but one of the slots had that rainfall question. I think it was the afternoon slot. There was the rainfall question. Rainfall in different states. That was a 5-6 minutes set. CAT 17 mein, if you look at, I think again I don't remember the slot, but look at the CAT 17 paper and look at that burger pizza question, where 2 people, Anish and Bani, are making burgers and pizza. Look at that set, and you will see that was a 5-6 minute set. So strong solvers have that ability to, when they see a 5-6 minute set, when there is a 5-6 minute set, if I take 9-10 minutes on that, then I'm not going to be able to do anything more than 3.5-4 sets. So this is how we manage our time, right? There are definitely tough things in the exam, but from time to time you will get that pressure release set, and you have to be ready for it. And that's why the strategy of what Michelle is asking me, can I leave traditional DI, is not a very advisable strategy. You can do a little bit less of it if you have less of time, but not leaving it, right? So so let's first focus on section 1 then. And the other thing is, uh, you will find components without doing traditional DI. If you jump to logical DI, you'll find components of understanding here, which if you don't understand from here, you will not be able to perceive in the logical DI parts. So there has to be some amount of traditional DI. Now traditional DI, whether you want to do 100 sets or you want to do 200 sets, that is up to you. That you can vary, but not to zero. So section 1 starts from, so if you look at my book, it starts from part 1 of section 1, and this is just a primer. Even somebody going for a long term prep process on this, the basic modes of data representation, what a pie chart is, I mean, this is just warm up. I mean, I think of these as simply warm up exercises. And warm up, as you know, cannot be more than 2 days, 3 days. So I would suggest that even if you're going for long term prep, you can finish this off in 2-3 days. If you're going for short term prep in a 3-month context, you can even skip this, because I don't think anybody of you has a problem understanding what a pie chart is and reading what a pie chart is. So you can actually skip this part if you are on the shorter time frame. But I'll just tell you where you'll get the good quality sets here. And then developing your calculations. This is something you're doing for CAT also, for quants also. So you will definitely do this along with this thing. So this is going to be parallel. And when you are trying to push yourself through a set in 5 minutes, 6 minutes, how much your calculation supports you is going to be an important part of whether you can do that. So the juice starts from here, right? The juice starts from here in data interpretation in the DI book. This section 1 part 1 was warm up, the chapters of each data representation. Part 2 of section 1 was calculations. So that's a parallel execution you have to do for getting better at quants and DI both. So this is part 3, how to think in traditional data interpretation, and this is where the juice starts. So this has a couple of chapters here. One is you when I say introduction to traditional DI and mathematical construction traditional DI, what you need to understand is that ultimately every DI question moves into some mathematical construct. So it might move into percentages, it might move into ratio proportion, it might move into averages, but it moves into some construct. So there are mathematical constructs involved in every DI question. So you first, I mean, you typically you should be aware of the chapters of averages, alligation, percentage, ratio proportion. These 4 chapters are must do, and also some basics about numbers, number systems, and maybe progressions, and time, speed, distance, and time and work. These are some sets can in traditional DI could specifically be built around these chapters. But average, percentage, ratio, proportion, alligation, these 4 are the backbone, and even maybe interests. These are the backbone of DI. So you should do these chapters well before you start working on your DI. You should be aware of all these things. And so this how to think in data interpretation can be done in around 2 days, and it can take around 10 days also, depending on whether you are in a 3-month preparation time zone or you are in a 9-month plus prep time zone. So I would want you to spend a couple of days at least on this to start with. And then part 4 is DI exercise without options. This is can skip if you're in short-term prep. If you're in long-term prep, also this would typically be maximum 1 week long, maybe 10 hours, 8 to 10 hours work on this max. In fact, उतना भी नहीं आएगा, 20-30 sets 5 घंटे में हो जाना चाहिए, 5 hours max of work here. Right? So this is again a primer kind of exercise. Just warming you up again for your DI preparation. So that brings us to the 10-minute test papers, part 5, and part 6, the mock test papers. So this 10-minute test papers, I think there are around 30 of them in the book. So even if you take maybe, I mean, this is where the practice will come in. When I said 200 sets of traditional DI, you'll get most of it here and in the next section. So this 30 test papers of mock test papers of 16 minutes of 16 questions each, based on the latest CAT pattern, 16 questions, but this is completely traditional DI. 16 questions, and yeah, I'll do that, Harsh, for you. 16 questions and 30 minutes to do. So you might want to work on your speed here on data interpretation. And what happens in DI is that, especially in traditional DI, and this will also happen in logical, but traditional DI, what you'll start seeing is that you'll start seeing that there is a repetition of language, logic, data, structures. After some time, you start seeing they start getting repeated calculations. So as you go through your, and if you see here, 30 tests with around 4 to 5 sets each, तो ये करीब 150 सेट्स का अवेलेबिलिटी है, 150 practice sets है, sets of questions on traditional DI here, and you'll see these are not all easy. You'll see some good quality questions there also. And the reason why you should cover this is not just CAT, you also have the IFT exam for which you are preparing, which is completely built on traditional DI, and you're also preparing for ZAT. Now ZAT में क्या है, from in the QA section, around QA section में 20 to 28 questions के बीच में आता है, depending on the year's pattern, और उस QA section में 6 question DI के आते हैं. And if you do anywhere between 10 to 12 questions, if you can solve 10 to 12 questions correctly in the QA section, you are almost guaranteed. If your other sections are equally on the same level, you are guaranteed to get through that and get an XLRA call. So if you can do these 6 questions of DI in that, तो होता क्या है कि बाकी 15 से 20 जो क्वेश्चन बचते हैं, जो quants के क्वेश्चन होते हैं, the quants questions, the 15-20 questions in that which are quants questions, उसमें your pressure is gone. You just need to solve 6 of them. You just need to solve 30% of those questions. So the pressure is completely removed if you can get to that point where you say that, okay, all the 6 questions in DI I can do. And DI ka best part, like reading comprehension, is that everything is going to be there in front of you. To extract the information, you just have to perceive what is there in front of you. right? So you don't need to bring anything from your side apart from the basic reactions. What do you do in various situations? So just allegation situation kahin pe lag raha hai between data structures. You should be able to see that. Apart from that, there's nothing much you need to do. So so these 30 test papers again, if you take, I mean, I'm assuming that you are doing DI along with other things. So if you are in a 9+ months situation, even in a 6 month situation, I would say that you should take these 30 papers in 30 days. One paper every day. And since this is 30 minutes only, it gives you enough time to do other things also, right? If you are in the 3 month framework, maybe you can not take these so much as tests, or take few of them and skip a few of them. Maybe you might want to do only 20 of those and skip 10. So you might want to select which test paper has better quality questions. Usko you might want to do that. So you might want to do 20 papers in 20 days if you're in a 3 month framework here. So whatever you look at, even in a 3 month framework, uh, I mean, and it is not sequential that you finish traditional then you start logical. Logical has to start parallelly with traditional. So if you pull your traditional DI preparation to around 60 days, 20 days here on part 6, 5 to 7 days here, and as I said, this is the DI exercise without options. You can skip that. And this is 2 days, so the work is around 30 days only, and that too half an hour, 1 hour per day only. So you'll have time. So in 60 days time, if out of those 60 days in 2 month time frame, you're just giving yourself 1 hour of traditional DI per day for half of those days. So it gives you that feature. Michelle asked me why have I not sorted this on level of difficulty. That's because automatically the logical DI becomes higher difficulty, Michelle. So you can think of logical DI as mostly LOD 2-3. Okay, yeah, I'll do that, mine. I'll do that for you. Cat 21 Kabi, I'll make a video for how to prepare. But please remember one thing. Please remember one very simple thing here. This split, and that's one of the reasons I split it into traditional and logical. Earlier, what used to happen, as I said, the logical DI was in a section called challenges in DI. So that section was 8th section of the book, the 5th edition. Mein dekhoge, the 7th, 8th edition. A lot of people never reached that point while solving the book. They would buy the book and they would not never do that, and then they would go into the exam and say कि Arun Sharma book में तो इस तरह के questions ही नहीं है. तो थे तुम पहुंचे नहीं थे वहां पे तो मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ. But so that's why I said okay, let me give this enough emphasis now, and perhaps my book is the only book or content which gives you traditional DI and logical DI split half and half. It's the only book which has that feature, right? Where you get your as I said, around 150, 170 sets of traditional DI you get here, and then you go to logical DI, or wahan pe bhi you will get around 200 sets of experience. So this is the only book that gives you that feature. So it took me a lot of effort to do this, because DI mein, when you do something like this, there is a recasting of the whole book. There's a lot of danger of errors creeping in. So as I mentioned yesterday, now I've got very cautious about the way my books are published. So the way we go through is, once they finish and once McGraw-Hill is ready with the publishing point, I look at the book at the last point. पहले मैं यहाँ पे अपना काम करके दे देता था. Starting, I would do my work and I would give them, assuming that everything will be hunky dory at their end, and especially the typesetters end. Of course, the people, the editors, etc. of McGraw-Hill are quite good. बट दो टाइप सेटर कभी टू उड़ा दिया किसी क्वेश्चन में और वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है उस पूरे क्वेश्चन में, तो इट बिकम्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू ट्रेस फॉर somebody who does not have that quality of having solved the CAT himself or herself. So that's why I've introduced, put in that last version, so that this is the process that allowed me to actually take that call कि चलो ठीक है इसको recast करते हैं, because जो भी गलती हो गई यहाँ पे मैं देख लूंगा solve करके, right? So at least उतना I can vouch कि latest editions में the errors are very limited. उसके बाद भी हो जाता है because as I was mentioning yesterday, if you're sitting and solving 200 questions, 40-50 sets in a day and checking them, because the book is going for publishing, so many times what happens is last minute mein you don't get that, I mean you make errors yourself sometimes, and some errors might pass through, but otherwise uh, this thing. So I was very careful while doing this when I cast this section 2 in this book, and I realized that this is one of the areas which will become one of the most important parts of uh, uh, of the prep process for DI these days. But please don't make the mistake of saying that I'll only do logical DI. You have to do both, and as I said, you do parallel processing of both. You treat them as two different subjects and start them parallelly. So traditional DI ऐसे देखोगे तो एकदम short term में करना है तो 30 days is enough to do it. If you're going for a 9-month plus process, then I would suggest that you give around 80 to 90 days on traditional DI, 80 to 90 days of work, 1 to 2 hours per day. So around 150 hours of work in traditional DI में, upper limit 100 to 150 hours of work. And if you are in a shorter term framework, you can finish the traditional DI in somewhere between 30 to 50 hours of work. लेकिन उसको अवॉइड मत करना, ठीक है? And what happens is, I mean, I call it the x-axis. I call it the x-axis of exposure. And as you go down the x-axis of exposure on traditional DI, the x-axis basically is how many questions have you been exposed to. When you're at 0, you don't know anything about that area. It's just a name. As you start crossing this x-axis, you reach 25, you reach 50. What happens? You start seeing repetition. You will start seeing when you're doing the first few sets, there'll be the first time you'll see a calculation कि ऐसा calculation भी आता है, right? There'll be a first time that you will see this happening. But as you keep going ahead, you will find points or situations where you will start seeing okay ये तो पहले देखे थे हम. And if you're smart, you will start building your processes. Ki how do I overcome these structures or these solutions as I move on, right? So that first time maybe it troubled me, but second time it should not. And your x-axis also needs to start for logical DI. When you're at 0 sets, you don't know what logical DI at all is, and the logical DI experience has to be taken to around 150 to 200 sets, and you'll get that many inside this part of the book. So what are the subparts? What are the parts of this? So here I'm starting straight from, because I don't need to introduce what pie charts are and bar charts are. Those are already done in the first part of the book. So here I'm starting straight from the how to think in logical data interpretation. So picking up sets and taking you through the thought process through solving this. So maybe you might want to spend between 3 to 5 days, and while doing this, your first 3 to 5 to 7 days on logical DI you can spend on this. And while doing this, every set that is given in this part is basically, when you're teaching DI, or when the pedagogy of DI ultimately is built around the pedagogy of data interpretation is ultimately built around only one thing, and that is basically you pick up a question and you show how to solve it. So when you're doing this part, what I suggest is that don't look at my solution. First, hide my solution from your eyes. First, try to solve each set yourself. Try to experience it, and then look at the solution. The solutions are handheld the way of solving those sets. So look, don't look at the solutions first. Solve it first. Try to think about it, and every set as you go through your x-axis of exposure. Yeah, you can start, Vijay. The book is meant for starters only. So the x-axis of exposure on logical DI essentially moves this way only. That as you keep gaining more and more experience, you starting to see again first 10-20 sets. Every set will look new to you. But by the time you're on the 25th set, by the time or you're on 50th set, you start realizing that there is repetitive logic and language even in logical DI. And that's why I typically say that logical DI may reach the zone of around solving 150 to 200 sets. And once you have done that much, then you can move to the mocks completely. So coming back, so ye 3 to 5 to 7 days mein khatam hona chahiye. And that is then followed by the 12-minute tests. So these are 30 tests and why I've called it 12-minute tests and not 10-minute tests is because 12 minutes should be the upper limit of solving these kind of sets. So these are, I mean, you try to take these tests as 12-minute tests, one set each. So if you are in a short-term structure, if you take four tests like this, four tests like this of 12 minutes each, and you give an upper limit of 60 minutes for yourself to solve them, and try to, for each one you take 12 minutes, and then the remaining 12 minutes you can decide to split where you want to do, so that you can get through something which you have done half in 12 minutes. So you I mean, there are two aspects to the 12-minute test. One is speed, of course, but the other thing is, first you also have to learn how to solve these questions, and you learn the nuances that are inbuilt in the logical DI set. So both aspects. So first objective will be to get this done in 12 minutes each. Then you add the extra 12 minutes for 4 sets. So you can split it where you want. And then you also try to say, okay, the sets I could not solve, if I give it an additional 12 minutes, can it get done? Can I do it in 24 minutes, if not in 12? So when you're talking about data interpretation, the process of learning goes this way. Your first stop in the process of learning, is that I can't solve these questions. I have no idea how to do this. And as you start practicing and as you start experiencing, once you start going down that x-axis, you will start having green shoots inside this. And the second stop happens when you move from here to here, where you say, now I have understood what this is. And this would typically happen at the 50-100 mark of sets, where you start understanding the logical DI mein hota kya hai, and you reach a point where you say, I can solve any of this. I might take time, but I can solve at least. Give me time, I'll solve it. That's the second part, right? And then you reach the third stop of your learning process. Between the second stop and the third stop, you are improving your efficiency. So you in the second stop, you get to a point where, okay, not 12, but 20, 25, 30 minutes mein solve ho jata hai set. Us range of time mein. And then you start bringing it down to 12, 14 minutes. No matter what set it is, you can get through it in 12, 14 minutes. And then once you start standing on this level, then the last step of learning is where you start saying, okay, Can I push through some of these sets in 6-7 minutes? Can I create those seventh gear solving? Can I create my seventh gear of solving? Can I go through these sets in one reading? देखो basically quants DRLR, when you want to increase speed, the only fundamentally the only four fundamental ways in which you do it. One is that you finish your work in one reading. Don't do a second reading of a set, which I was talking on LR also. You should, if you read a clue once, you just use it then and there. Don't do a second reading. That's one. The second is you reduce the amount you write. The third is you improve your calculations. So bring your solving down to one reading, reduce the writing you do, improve your calculations, and then you focus on small tricks and techniques so that you can do things faster. But this is a fourth way of adding speed. The first three ways of adding speed is here, and these are the major ways. So if you are a 2-time reader or 2 to 3-time reader of a DI set, and you can become a one-time reader of a set, you will be down by around 4 minutes on your solving time. You'll come down by around 4 minutes on a solving time. So sometimes being a 15-minute solver of a set will become an 11-minute solver of the same set if you can just come down to one reading, do nothing else. Just make sure that you can understand sets or you can understand clues in one reading. You do not require a second reading of the whole set to understand a clue. So when I say one reading on through one way, one direction, or one time through the set, I don't mean that every clue you have to read only once. So there will be some clues which will be more intricate. So if you need to read it twice or thrice, that's okay, but not the whole set. What I see a lot of people doing is going through the set again and again and again. So you have to be very clear. You read a clue, extract, and get rid of this clue. I don't need to read this again in my life. So once the extraction is done from the clue, that you should be through with that. Right? So coming back. So these 12-minute tests, as I said, you can finish it in 7 days, or you can take 30 days over it, depending on what time frame you're preparing in. If you're a 9+ month time frame, even a 6-month time frame, I would suggest 30 days over it. Because your problems, these problems are all curated in such a way that the more time you spend in these problems, the more you will see inside those problems. Abhi bhi, when I solve in one of my classes, suppose I'm solving a past CAT question. If I'm solving a past CAT question in data and prediction, many times I might have solved that question 4 times beforehand or in my classes. Many times I come across, oh my God, this question had this aspect also, and I'd never seen this aspect 4 times that I solved it. So the more time you spend inside a question, the better it becomes. So you have to rather than, the objective is not to finish. The objective is to spend time inside the questions. Even if it requires an hour to spend time there, fine, do it. Spend time. And if you spend time on anything, you learn it better. Right? So one set per day is also fine here. And then that brings me to the third part, is that the mock. So in the traditional, in the logical DI part, if you look through, यहाँ पे in the how to think in logical DI, I would have given around 20-30 sets, which I told you first solve them, then you look at my solution. And in the 12-minute tests, you have 30 sets more. And then when you go to the mock test on logical data and prediction, this is 16 questions, 4 sets each, and there are 30 mock test papers. So it's 120 sets more. So if you look at this together, 30 plus 30 plus 120, it gives you total exposure of 180 sets, which is more than enough. ठीक है, you can Dheeraj. right? So coming back, the third section is the data interpretation from the archives. So isme, once you finish that much, then you go to I mean, this is divided into three parts. One is the CAT papers, IFT papers, ZAT papers, and CAT we have kept just the last couple of years. For the entire CAT solving, you'll have to go into my other book, the previous year question papers wala book, which I showed you at the start. So this, once you finish that part, so ye 30 tests jo hai, this you can do maybe between 1 month to 3 months, depending on how much time you have. So if you are finishing in 1 month, then those 30 tests should be done maybe one per day. But you will have to manage this along with your DI and LR and your quants, etc. So maybe if you are trying to do, instead of 30 days, you can take a 45-day time frame for it. 30 might not be very practical. So you take a 45-day time frame for it. And if you are preparing longer term, 3 to 6 months, 9 months, then you can take between 90 to 120 days to finish this part. But again, each of these questions are curated very, this thing. Some questions might take you 40 minutes to solve. So spend some time on these questions so that you understand it. So that once you're done with this 180, 200 sets, and then you go into the mock papers, the previous year's archives, and the previous year's papers should be maximum between 15 to 30 days more, where you look at all the sets there. And typically you would have, if you look through here, that is from 2008 to 2019, 12 years I've given here. And that में basically 2 sets आते हैं. ऐसे लगता है कि बहुत लंबा है, लेकिन it's just 25 sets. So 25 sets you can also finish in 3-4 days time. So that's why I said 15 to 30 days is enough for the previous year's paper. और CAT का जब देखोगे तो apart from this book, also look at the 99 to 2008 papers. They'll give you some good experiences there. बहुत सारा उसका मैंने why I've removed it from the archives is because a lot of that I've used in the especially in the how to think in logical DI part. So all the good questions I've used. So I made sure that you don't miss out, even if you don't do it separately. You would see this. And if you are doing the 99 to 2008 paper separately also, तो उसमें भी you will see that there'll be a lot of repetition between what you have already done in my book and doing there. So this is the basic structure of what we would want you to do. So as I said, 3-4 days on that, maybe 1 week to 10 days, because IFT has 20-25 questions per year, and we have 12 years of IFT paper in this. And IFT में you'll get a next level experience of traditional DI, some logical DI also you'll see. As I told you, the exam does not tell you कि logical है कि traditional है. वो solving points से आता है कि what are you required to solve and what are you required to do there. So the IFT paper is also there. So you might want to spend maybe a week to 10 days on the IFT papers. And definitely before the IFT exam, you should do this completely. Right? So you can also schedule this work 15 days from the IFT paper. 15 days before the IFT paper, you can just look at this and see the experience of how to solve these questions and practice whatever is required. Or otherwise, the other thing you could do is you could do this 2 months before the IFT exam and then review it and revise it 15 days before the paper is done. Right? So once you finish all that, then you can naturally add all the mock test papers and all the questions that you're getting in the mocks. Right? तो विजय मेरे बुक में तो अब split हो गया ना. Section 1 is only traditional. All the traditional DI sets I've put in section 1. And section 2 is a completely logical. So when you go to section 2, you'll just get logical DI sets. And as I said, around 180 sets hai usme. and there's no other content or book available where this kind of carving has been done. Even the mock test, you'll get a mix of stuff. So this is the basic mocks should be between 30 to 40. You should take between 30 to 40 mocks. So 40 mocks agar loge, to this will add around 120 to 160 mock, 160 sets more for you. ठीक है? तो दोनों स्टार्ट करो, लॉजिकल ट्रेडिशनल स्टार्ट करो, साथ में पैरेलली लॉजिकल स्टार्ट करो. ट्रेडिशनल को रन फॉर 60 days, लॉजिकल को रन फॉर 90 days. Yes, practice and because most of what you will experience or most of what you will learn will come from the experiences you have inside the exam. Right? I've answered that question, Nitin, earlier. You should not leave it. You can watch the part of this. I've talked about this at the start of the session today. So you should not leave it because there are questions that keep coming from there also. Right? So thank you all, everybody. This was what I wanted to talk to you, especially all my readers and students. Students को तो मैं मिलता भी रहता हूँ, but although आजकल this meeting is only virtual, but thank you to all the readers for all the love and affection. It's been great guiding everybody for the last 15-20 years. Right, so I gave this thing. You'll have to spend time inside the questions, Meenakshi. Don't worry. Initially, don't worry about the time. Your first step is to move from not being able to solve a question to being able to understand what's there in the question. Okay, Meenakshi, that's what I was telling you. So don't worry about that. डरने से कुछ नहीं होगा, Nitin. Face it, learn. And so Vijay, that's up to you. Mindworks pe you'll get my entire content, including quants, etc. We are completely online, Moin. So on Unacademy, I'm doing DILR courses mostly, but so they are different structures. On Mindworks, of course, Mindworks is my institution, so I take full responsibility of anybody who comes into Mindworks. But that's completely up to you. I'm not going to guide you towards idhar aao ya udhar jao. That's up to you. You can look at both the products and you can see the differentiation between both of them and decide on what you want to do. Right? So that's because you are slow at your calculations, Aman. If you become fast at your calculations, the numbers will retain in your mind. ठीक है? चलो. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll wind up with this. So I answered that, Nitin. Thanks a lot. So I'll wind up. I've got to go for a class. I'm teaching parajumbles today to my CAT batch. So I have to do a little bit of work before I get there. 5 minutes मेरे को भी देखना पड़ेगा कि what I'm teaching. So I'll wind up. I started at 7:30 there. Chalo, see you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, Dipesh. So you can contact me. You would have my number. You can contact me, and I'll help you out with your strategies, etc. And we'll be having some mock tests. There is a video if you are doing the test series of Mindworks. There's a video on how to improve test scores and how to analyze and improve test scores. So watch that. It'll give you ideas. Nitin, तुम भी उसको देख लेना. उसमें तुमको ideas मिलेगा क्या करना है. Right? चलो. Thank you so much. Bye bye.